He told her, "If you can survive the night, I'll spare you." But when dawn came, the Alpha King was the one on his knees. This isn't a story about Beauty and the Beast. It's about the curse they shared and the love that rewrote the laws of gods and blood. Stay until the end, and you'll understand why even monsters deserve a love story. There are rules written into every pack's bones, laws older than moonlight itself. One of them says that omegas heal, nurture, and obey. Another says that silver is death. I learned both on the same night. I was 12 the first time my body shifted under a winter moon. The entire Hollowfell pack gathered for the ceremony, my parents proud, the elders humming ancient hymns. I remember the sound of drums echoing through the Pine Valley and the way my breath misted in the cold. They expected me to shine, to finally prove I wasn't the timid, wrong-smelling child the others whispered about. "Cut her palm," said Elder Merrick, the pack historian, offering the ceremonial dagger. His hands trembled with reverence, not fear, yet. The blade was beautiful, etched with runes that glowed faintly under moonlight. I swallowed, pressed the edge to my skin, and drew the first mark of adulthood. The cut was shallow, but what spilled onto the stone was not red. It shimmered like molten silver, bright, impossible alive. The elders froze. My mother screamed. My father caught her before she fell, eyes wide with horror. "Moonblood," someone hissed. The air turned sharp, filled with the smell of fear. Merrick stumbled back, muttering prayers. "It cannot be," he whispered. "Silver blood belongs to the gods, not wolves." No one touched me again that night. No one ever would. The healers later confirmed what they called mercury blood, a curse that poisoned anyone who came into contact with it. A single drop could stop a wolf's heart. My existence itself became a weapon too dangerous to wield. They built me a cottage on the edge of Hollowfell territory, beyond the hunting grounds where even the moonlight struggled to reach. I was forbidden from joining runs or gatherings. I became the ghost of our pack, the cursed Omega whose blood killed and whose scent drove others to sickness. But isolation breeds a strange kind of sight. I began to notice things others missed. The patterns of migration, the way the forest listened, the whispers of travelers who passed too near. They spoke of a kingdom farther north, ruled by a beast who was once a man. An Alpha King, Eric Nightbane, who demanded yearly tributes of Omegas from every pack. Few returned. "Why does he take them?" I asked once, when the merchant boy lingered near my cottage. He shivered, lowering his voice. "Because the king's curse hungers. He makes them fight until dawn. The survivor becomes his queen, or his next meal." I laughed bitterly. A monster feeding monsters. How poetic. But fate, I was beginning to learn, has a cruel sense of humor. 8 years passed like a slow frost. I grew skilled at solitude, teaching myself languages from the tattered scrolls no one cared to reclaim. I read about poisons, herbs, strategy. Anything that might turn my curse into something resembling power. I learned that a drop of my blood mixed with ink could preserve words forever, unforgeable and unbroken. So Hollowfell used it for treaties, for sealing pacts. My veins became a commodity. When the Alpha King's emissaries came, demanding their tribute, I already knew who they'd choose. "Leora," my father said, voice low, ashamed. "You'll be the one." He couldn't even look at me. None of them could. But his words carried the weight of the pack's survival. I met his eyes, my tone steady. "I was already exiled once. I can survive it again." He flinched, perhaps because it was true. That night, I packed what little I owned, a silver quill, a few scrolls, and the dagger that had first revealed my curse. The guards wouldn't touch me as they chained me into the wagon. They wrapped the manacles in wolfbane-soaked cloth, as if I were something unholy. When we crossed the northern borders 3 days later, I finally saw the fortress rising from the mountain's heart. Black stone, jagged as teeth, crowned in frost. No torches burned there. The Alpha King didn't need fire. He had fear. "Welcome to Duskvale Keep," one of the guards muttered. "If you can survive the night, you'll live to regret it." I smiled thinly. If he touches me, he'll die. The guard spat over the edge of the cart. Then maybe you'll be doing us all a favor. They didn't understand. They never had. My blood didn't just kill. It remembered. It adapted. It had been silent for years, but even then, I felt it humming beneath my skin, waiting for something or someone to wake it. As the gates swallowed us whole, I whispered to the moon through the bars. You cursed me once, I said. Let's see if your curse can kill a king. The gates of Duskvale slammed shut behind us with a sound like thunder. It wasn't the echo of stone meeting stone. It was finality, sealing away whatever warmth existed in the world beyond. Maybe they're tired of pretending they can give you something worth keeping. A ripple went through the room. No one spoke to the Alpha King like that. Eric's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened, predatory interest replacing boredom. You have teeth, little one. What's your name? Leora of Hollowfell.
Ah.
The cursed pack. He rose, moving with unsettling grace. Your blood is said to kill anything it touches. Only if it deserves it, I replied. A faint smile touched his lips, cold and dangerous. Then perhaps I should test that. He stepped closer. The guards retreated, wisely keeping distance. I could feel the weight of his presence, the hum in the air that all alphas carry, magnified 100-fold. His power pressed against me, daring submission. I met it with stillness. He circled me once, head tilted like a wolf assessing prey. No scent of fear, he murmured. Interesting. Fear is wasted on the inevitable. He laughed, sharp as shattering ice. Then you know what happens next. You kill me. I met his gaze. Or try. The silence that followed was electric. For a moment, I thought he might strike me down where I stood. Instead, he turned to the crowd of onlookers, nobles, guards, servants frozen in place. Tonight, he announced, our new tribute will be given a chance. If she survives until dawn, she may keep her life. The hall erupted into whispers. I heard the words impossible and insane, and Omega blood won't last an hour. I didn't flinch. Eric descended the dais, stopping inches from me. His voice dropped to a growl, meant only for my ears. Survive the night and I'll spare you. And if I don't, he smiled, all teeth, then you'll make a beautiful corpse. The guards dragged me from the hall and threw me into a small cell. The walls were stone, but the floor, oddly enough, was dirt, as if the castle itself couldn't decide whether I was prisoner or seed. Through the narrow slit of a window, I saw the moon climbing higher. Midnight wasn't far. A servant came, silent as a shadow, carrying a basin of water and a bundle of leather clothes. The king's orders, she said without meeting my eyes. You fight in the arena. Against whom? Her hands trembled. Him. She fled before I could speak again. So, the Alpha King himself. Either he meant to kill me personally, or he was looking for something far worse. I washed the grime of travel from my face, the water rippling silver wherever it touched me. My reflection stared back from that unnatural sheen, white scars like veins of moonlight across my skin, eyes that gleamed faintly in the dark. They had always said my blood was death. But maybe I thought it was evolution. When the guards came for me, I followed without resistance. The corridors twisted like veins through the heart of the mountain until they opened into a circular chamber lit by suspended orbs of blue fire. The scent of old battles lingered, sweat, steel, fear, and the faintest trace of burned magic. Eric stood in the center, bare-chested, scars like constellations across his body. In the firelight, he didn't look like a king at all. He looked like a weapon that had forgotten it was ever human. No weapon, he asked as I entered. I'm already armed. He raised an eyebrow. With what? Poison. Patience. He chuckled. That's new. The torches dimmed as he approached. The rules are simple, he said softly. Survive until sunrise. And then you get to ask me one question. Any question. And I will answer it truthfully. Why offer mercy? I asked. He tilted his head. Who said it would be mercy? The fight began with no signal. One heartbeat he was 5 steps away, the next he was behind me, faster than sight, faster than instinct. I moved only because something deep inside me screamed now. His hand brushed my shoulder, barely a touch, and the air cracked with heat. My blood hissed where his skin met mine, smoke curling in the cold air. He didn't flinch. He only smiled. "Interesting," he murmured. "Your blood burns, but it doesn't kill. Give it time," I managed. We circled each other in silence. For every strike he threw, I moved just enough to avoid it. For every feint, I offered no reaction. He was used to fear. He fed on it, and I gave him nothing. Minutes stretched into hours, or maybe it was only moments. Time warped in that place, caught between breath and blood. Finally, he lunged, catching my wrist, forcing me to meet his eyes. "You're not afraid of dying," he said. "I've already done that," I whispered. For a heartbeat, his grip faltered. And in that instant, the air shifted, an unseen current crackling between us like lightning searching for ground. My blood pulsed, glowing faintly through my veins, and his pupils dilated as if he could feel it calling to something buried inside him. He stepped back slowly, breathing hard, his voice raw. "What are you?" I met his gaze. "A mistake," I said. "Or a cure. Depends who's asking." When dawn finally crept through the high windows, neither of us had drawn blood. The guards found us standing still, staring at one another as if trying to read languages written in bone. The Alpha King broke the silence first. "Take her to the East Wing," he ordered. "She lives." Then, to me, softer, "Tomorrow night, we begin again." The East Wing was nothing like the rest of Duskvale. Where the other halls breathed cold and darkness, this one almost seemed asleep. No guards, no servants, no scent of life. Just long corridors lined with shuttered windows and dust that whispered when you moved. The room they gave me wasn't a cell, but it might as well have been. Bare stone walls, a small hearth, and a narrow bed carved from blackwood. Someone had left food on the table. Bread, venison, water that shimmered faintly blue. The same strange glow that haunted this place. I ate little. My mind was too loud. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. The Alpha King. Eric's touch should have burned to ash. The curse in my blood had ended stronger wolves than him. Yet he'd touched me, held me, and lived. The smoke that rose from his skin had been proof of pain, not death. So how? I traced the faint silver veins glowing under my wrist. My blood had reacted to him. No, recognized him. Like something buried deep within me had stirred at his presence. That terrified me more than his claws ever could. A soft sound drew my attention to the door. A knock, polite, hesitant. "Enter," I said. The same servant from before stepped in, hood drawn low. "His Majesty requests your presence in the library." "Does he ever sleep?" "Not since the curse," she whispered. Then, after a pause, "He didn't expect you to survive." I smiled faintly. Neither did I. The library sat at the heart of the keep, a cathedral of shadows and silver fire. Shelves stretched so high they disappeared into mist, each lined with books bound in leather, bone, or something stranger. The scent was intoxicating, old paper, iron, and magic. Eric stood near the central table, unarmored but still dangerous. His hair was damp, as though he'd come straight from the training fields. When he looked up, the torchlight caught in his eyes, making them gleam like ice cut from lightning. "You heal fast," he said. "Even after that." "I told you," I said quietly. "My blood remembers." He studied me for a long moment, expression unreadable. Then he gestured toward a chair. "Sit." I didn't. "You said if I survived, I could ask you one question." "So I did." He leaned back against the table, arms crossed. "Ask." I met his gaze. "What are you?" For a heartbeat, his smirk faltered. Then he chuckled softly. "A wolf who made a mistake." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you'll get tonight." He turned away, but I caught the shadow that crossed his face, the the flicker of pain buried beneath arrogance. Something about his stillness felt unnatural, like a man holding his breath for years. "Your curse," I said. The servant mentioned it. His jaw tightened. "They talk too much. What kind of curse makes a king starve himself on fear?" His eyes snapped to mine, and the air between us shifted again. That same charge from the arena, raw, electric, alive. "Careful, Omega," he murmured. "You're not ready to see what I am. Try me." He smiled without humor. "Very well." He lifted a hand. The torches dimmed, their light swallowed by the dark. Then I saw it, lines of black spreading from his collarbone like roots, crawling up his throat and across his chest. His veins weren't silver or blue, they were shadow. "This," he said softly, "is what happens when a god dies inside a wolf." I felt my pulse stutter. "You're bound to one." "Bound?"
"No."
His voice was low, rough. "I killed one. Long ago. Its essence bled into me before it died. Now it lives inside my bones, feeding on fear. If I stop feeding it," he smiled thinly, "I stop existing." The pieces slid together in my mind, his endless hunger, the tributes, the arena. He wasn't killing them for pleasure. He was keeping the thing inside him alive. "Then why didn't it kill me?" I asked. "Because for the first time in years," he said, stepping closer, "it felt something other than hunger." Our eyes locked. The space between us thinned until I could feel the pull again, his curse reaching for mine like opposite poles of a same storm. My blood sang in answer, the silver glow in my veins brightening. "Whatever you are," he said quietly, "you're the first thing that's ever fought it. And if I'm not fighting it," I whispered, "what if I'm feeding it too?" He froze. Then, slowly, he reached up, fingers hovering just shy of my cheek. The heat from his skin rolled off him in waves, but he didn't touch me. "You shouldn't exist," he said. "Neither should you." His hand trembled. For a moment, it looked like he might. Finally, let himself touch me again. But he turned away instead, voice suddenly sharp.
"Go," he said.
Before I remember what I am. I stood still. "You already do." The torches flared, blinding for a heartbeat. When the light faded, he was gone. Only the scent of smoke and iron remained. I returned to my room in silence. Sleep didn't come. I sat by the narrow window until dawn, watching frost bloom across the glass. My blood still pulsed faintly silver beneath my skin, steady as moonlight. Whatever had bound me to the Alpha King was waking, and I wasn't sure which of us would survive it. The third night in Duskvale began with silence. No guards. No summons. No whispers through the hall. That alone told me something was wrong. By now, the rhythm of this place had become familiar. The clang of training rings at dusk, the restless cries of wolves chained by magic, the deep hum of the mountain that was both fortress and cage. But tonight, the keep was still, the kind of stillness that comes before blood. I should have stayed in my chamber. It wasn't sound so much as vibration, crawling across skin and bone. My blood responded instantly. The silver veins along my arms flared, bright enough to cast shadows. "What is this?" I breathed. "The moon's judgment," he said. "It happens once every 100 years. It calls those touched by its curse." "And what does it want?" His gaze flicked toward the torn roof. "To decide whether we live or burn." Light spilled from above, blinding. The moon broke through the clouds, its light pouring directly onto the mirrored floor. Where it touched, the reflection moved, not like glass, but like water. Ripples spread outward, forming shapes, faces, and then a wolf's. Hundreds of them, made of silver light. They circled us, silent and watching. One stepped forward, a great she-wolf with eyes like frostfire. When she spoke, her voice was in my mind, not my ears. "Blood of moon and blood of shadow. You are not enemies, you are halves." Eric stiffened beside me. "Halves of what?" "A broken whole," the voice said. "The gods died, but their remnants sought balance. You carry their fragments." I looked at my hands, the glow spilling between my fingers. You mean his curse. And your blood. The voice was fading already, scattered by the rising wind. If you resist one another, you both perish. If you unite, the old gods wake again. Then, silence. The light vanished, leaving us in darkness, so deep it felt solid. When my eyes adjusted, Eric was watching me. His expression was unreadable, somewhere between awe and terror. Halves of a god, he said quietly. Do you have any idea what that means? Only that I'm tired of being someone else's prophecy. He almost smiled, but the tension didn't fade. They want us to merge, to complete what they failed to destroy.
Merge.
I repeated. You mean? Not in the way you're thinking. His tone was dry, but his eyes flickered with something warmer. Spirit. Power. Not flesh.
A lie.
Or maybe a hope. I took a step closer. If we refuse, then the curse consumes us both. For the first time since I'd met him, Eric looked uncertain. He wasn't the unshakable Alpha King now. He was a man caught in something older than empires. What happens if we don't survive the next moonrise? I asked. He met my gaze. Then the world remembers what it means to fear the dark. The ground trembled suddenly, dust falling from the ceiling. A deep growl echoed through the mirrors, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. Eric cursed. It's begun early. The curse, my curse. It's waking. Then fight it. I can't. Not without. He stopped, eyes flicking to me. Not without you. The air split with a scream. No, a roar. Something primal and wrong. The mirrors shattered outward, silver shards spinning like knives. I threw up my arm instinctively, but the fragments didn't cut me. They melted into my skin, merging with the silver already there. When I looked again, Eric was on his knees, clutching his chest, shadows spilling from his back like wings of smoke. Leora, he gasped. Get away. I didn't. I reached out and touched his shoulder. The world went white. In that blinding flash, I saw pieces of something vast, stars breaking, wolves howling in creation's first night, a figure made of both moonlight and shadow reaching toward me before shattering in two. When the light faded, Eric lay still, his breathing ragged but steady. My hands glowed faintly where I touched him, the silver and shadow twisting together. We were connected now, not by choice, by destiny or by curse. The moonlight dimmed, and I heard the faintest whisper in my mind. Survive the next moonrise, and the god will wake. I looked at Eric's unconscious form, the shadows curling around him protectively, and whispered to the darkness. Then I guess I'd better learn how to kill a god. When Eric woke, the moon had long fled the sky. Morning bled weak light through the cracks in the ceiling. The mirrors that once lined the chamber were gone, melted into the floor like spilled mercury. He stirred with a low growl, half human, half beast, eyes flicking open. No longer blue, no longer wholly his. Where, his voice broke on the first word. Still in dusk veil. I said, kneeling beside him. Still alive. You're welcome. He blinked at me, dazed, then hissed softly as he sat up. His hands trembled, smoke curling faintly from his skin where our bodies had touched during the surge. Don't, I warned. The connection hasn't settled. You'll burn us both. He froze. What did you do to me? Me? I gave a humorless laugh. You're the one who decided to almost die in front of a god's ghost. He stared at his palms, the veins shifting between black and silver. It's in me, he whispered. Your blood, your power, it's fused with mine. No, I corrected softly. They fused us. The moon, the curse, whatever's pulling our strings. We're bound now. His jaw tightened. Then I'll find a way to undo it. I stood, brushing shards of silver dust from my hands. You can try, but I think you'll find we're long past undoing. The days that followed blurred. I was no longer prisoner, not quite guest. The keep seemed to know what had changed. It hummed differently beneath my feet, the air heavy with tension and recognition. Wherever I went, the shadows shifted, curling toward me like loyal hounds. The servants avoided us both. I caught whispers in the corridors. Her blood's in him. She's remade the curse. He doesn't sleep anymore. And it was true. Eric didn't rest. He spent hours locked in the training halls, testing the limits of his strength, his endurance, his control. Sometimes I watched from the shadows, unseen. His movements had changed, faster, sharper, but each strike left a shimmer of silver in the air. Whatever he'd become, it wasn't just Wolf. One evening, I found him alone in the armory, blade pressed to his forearm. He drew the edge slowly, letting the blood fall into a basin. The droplets hissed as they hit metal, neither silver nor black, but something in between. He looked up when he sensed me. I needed to know. What? If I'm still me. I crossed the room, gaze on the blade. And he smiled faintly. The jury's out. I took the knife from his hand and turned it over. The steel had corroded where his blood touched it. You can't fight this by cutting it out, Eric. Then tell me how to live with it, he snapped. His voice wasn't cruel, just desperate. I saw it then, the cracks beneath the Alpha King's armor. He wasn't terrified of dying. He was terrified of becoming something that couldn't. You're afraid, I said quietly. Of you. Of what you see when you look at me. He took a step closer, the air between us alive again, that static thread that neither of us could sever. You think I haven't faced fear before? This isn't the kind you can kill. Then what do you suggest I do? Stop fighting it. He stared at me like I'd lost my mind. You want me to surrender to the curse? To the truth, I said. That it's not a curse anymore. It's us. Whatever this thing inside you is, it needs balance. And that's what I am. He studied me, every muscle tense, his breath unsteady. Balance, he repeated, almost disbelieving. Yes. Then softer, or destruction. That night, I dreamt of the first god. I saw the world before wolves, before kings. A vast sky split in two halves, silver and shadow. From them came two beings, siblings, lovers, enemies. One shaped the night, one gave it light. Together, they ruled the realm of beasts, until one betrayed the other. The shadow killed the moon, and in dying, she scattered her essence across the bloodlines of wolves. The shadow god, broken and hollow, buried himself inside the first Alpha King, Eric's ancestor, and slept for centuries. Until my blood woke it. When I jolted awake, my hands were glowing, not faintly. Brilliant, blinding, silver arcs dancing at my arms like lightning veins. The connection was alive, pulsing in time with something deeper than a heartbeat. I wasn't alone. Eric was in my room, half shadow, half man, eyes glowing like twin eclipses. You felt it too, he said. What's happening to us? He didn't answer. Instead, he reached out, and this time, when his fingers brushed mine, they didn't burn. The glow spread through both of us, silver and black swirling together like smoke and starlight. Then I felt it, the thing that had haunted us both, stirring. Not malevolent. Watching. Waiting. It's merging us, I whispered. He nodded once, voice a low rumble. And when it finishes, neither of us will be the same. I met his gaze. Then maybe that's what the gods wanted. Eric smiled, slow, dangerous, a flash of the wolf behind the man. Or maybe it's what they feared. The light faded, leaving the faint scent of ozone and blood in the air. I could still feel the hum beneath my skin, his power, my curse, intertwining like two notes of the same chord. Whatever we'd become, it was only beginning. And somewhere beyond the walls of Duskvale, the moon itself began to bleed. The first drops fell just before dusk. Not rain blood. Silver, thin as mist at first, but unmistakable. The servants saw it and screamed. The wolves outside howled until the sound shook the mountains. From the highest tower, I watched it streak down from the sky, thin rivers of light sliding down through the clouds and staining the snow crimson. Eric joined me a moment later.
He didn't speak.
Neither of us did. Words couldn't make sense of a bleeding moon. What does it mean? I finally asked. He leaned on the stone railing, the wind whipping his hair into pale strands. In every prophecy I've read, it only means one thing. And that is. He looked at me, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. The gods are waking. By morning, the blood had frozen in streaks across the keep's walls. Silver ice that hissed when touched. The air crackled with energy. Magic. Even the weakest wolves in the pack felt it. Their eyes glowed faintly under the dawn. Dusk Vale was alive, and it terrified everyone. I could feel it under my skin. The pulse of something old and vast, coiling through my veins, tugging at me like a tide. The bond between Eric and me had deepened overnight. His heartbeat echoed in my chest when he was near. When he used his power, the silver in my blood burned like wildfire. We had become a single, unstable creature. And the moon wanted more. That evening, the council demanded answers. They met in the war hall, a cavernous room lined with banners from conquered packs. I'd been ordered to stay away, but the air itself betrayed their secrecy. The magic that lived in my blood pulled their voices to me through the walls. "She's cursed him," one elder hissed. "He's not the same. He's stronger," another countered. "If her blood remade the curse, perhaps this is the gods' will. Or their warning." Then Eric's voice, deep and steady. "She didn't curse me. She completed me." The silence that followed was a weapon. I felt my pulse quicken, my skin tingling with the echo of his words. Completed. He'd said it like he believed it, like he wanted it to be true. But there was fear in him still. I'd seen it in the way he avoided sleep, in how he flinched when his own shadow moved. The thing inside him was growing hungrier, and through our bond, I could feel that hunger too. When the meeting ended, I was waiting outside the hall. "You made them afraid," I said. He shrugged. "Good. They'll try to kill me next. They can't." His gaze met mine, fierce, certain. "You're under my protection. And if they come for me anyway?" He smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Then I'll burn the mountain before I let them touch you." That night, the blood moon rose again. The sky turned red as wine. The bond between us throbbed like a living thing. I could feel his thoughts brushing against mine. Images more than words. Fire.
Teeth.
Shadows swallowing the throne room whole. I followed the pole to the training ring where we'd first fought. He was there, bare-chested, his body flickering between human and wolf with each heartbeat. The air around him shimmered, unstable. "Eric," I called, stepping into the ring. He turned slowly, his voice rough with strain. "It's too much. I can't control it." "Then let me." I reached out, and when our hands met, the ground cracked beneath us. The world bled light, silver and black, colliding like two storms. Power surged between us. His shadow spilled outward, wrapping around me like armor. My silver light poured into him, mending the fractures in his form. For a heartbeat, we weren't two beings. We were one. And in that unity, I saw everything, his memories, his fears, his endless war against the curse that devoured his bloodline. The centuries of violence and loneliness. The throne he never wanted. The god that whispered in his dreams.
And he saw me.
He saw the child who bled silver and was called a monster. The girl who lived alone at the edge of her pack. The woman who learned to survive by becoming the thing they feared. When the light faded, we stood in silence, breathing the same ragged air. "It's alive," I whispered. "The god. It's waking inside us." He nodded slowly, eyes unfocused. "I can feel it moving, like something breathing through me." "We have to find a way to stop it. Or control it," he said. "If it's part of us now, maybe it can be used." "Used?" I snapped. "You think you can weaponize a god?" He stepped closer, the faint glow of his eyes catching mine. "I think we don't have a choice." Hours later, as dawn crept back over the horizon, a scream echoed from the courtyard below. I ran to the window. The silver frost that had coated the keep was cracking, splintering open like glass. From beneath it, black tendrils of shadow unfurled, coiling across the snow. The magic wasn't sleeping anymore. It was spreading. "Eric," I shouted. He appeared beside me, his expression grim. It's too late. The gods waking faster than we thought. Then what do we do? His gaze drifted toward the mountains beyond the keep. We find where it fell, the heart of the curse. And if we do, then we end it, together. He turned, already moving toward the doors, cloak swirling behind him. For a moment, I just watched him, the man who'd been my enemy, my captor, now walking beside me toward something no wolf had faced before. The moon hung low behind the mountains, bleeding its last light across the snow. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid. We left Duskvale before dawn. The mountain air bit cold enough to sting, but it was the silence that unnerved me most. No birds, no wind, not even the distant growl of wolves. The world was holding its breath. Every step we took down the frozen path felt like crossing into something ancient, something that had been waiting far too long to be disturbed. Eric walked ahead of me, his cloak snapping like a dark banner in the wind. He didn't look back, but I knew he could feel my pulse in his veins, the same way I could feel his. Our bond had grown so tight now that thoughts occasionally slipped between us, emotions bleeding through the edges of our minds. I'd grown used to the flickers of his restlessness, his flashes of fear. But lately something else had begun to filter through. Restraint. Hunger. And worse, recognition. At the base of the ridge, the trail curved into a valley that shimmered faintly with silver light. The snow there wasn't natural. It pulsed, faintly alive, as if it remembered blood. This is it, Eric said quietly. The crater where the god fell. He knelt and brushed the snow aside. Beneath, the ground gleamed, pure obsidian, cracked through with veins of silver. The air smelled faintly of burnt metal and old sorrow. When I crouched beside him, the silver in my veins flared in response. The whole valley seemed to pulse with it, like a heartbeat beneath the earth. What do we do now? I asked. He glanced at me, his expression unreadable. We wake it properly, before it wakes on its own. I frowned. And how exactly does one wake a dead god? By giving it what it wants. Which is? His eyes darkened. Us. He unsheathed a dagger and drew it lightly across his palm. His blood fell onto the obsidian with a hiss, smoking as it spread through the cracks. The ground trembled. Eric. He cut me off. It has to be both of us. Shadow and silver. Together. I hesitated only a moment, then sliced my own palm and let my mercury blood fall to the stone. When the two mingled, the reaction was instant violent. A column of light erupted from the ground, silver and black entwined, spiraling upward into the sky. The sound wasn't thunder, but something older, a voice without words that shook the marrow of my bones. It filled my head, my blood, my breath. You are the vessel. You are the debt. I gasped, stumbling back. Eric caught me, his own eyes gone pale and burning. It's talking to you? To us, I whispered. The words were inside me now, carving themselves into my thoughts. It says, what was divided must become one. The ground cracked open. From the fissures rose shapes, wolf forms made of shadow, their eyes like moons, their bodies swirling in mist. They circled us, sniffing, snarling, testing the air. Don't move, Eric murmured. They're fragments, remnants of the god's form. One of the creatures lunged at me. Reflex took over. I raised my hand, and a burst of silver light shot from my palm, dissolving the beast into vapor. But where it vanished, a piece of it sank into my skin. The glow dimmed, replaced by a faint mark shaped like a crescent. Leora. Eric grabbed my shoulders. You can't keep absorbing it. It'll consume you. It's not consuming, I said, voice shaking. It's remembering. He frowned. Remembering what? Us. The shadows surged again, dozens this time, rising like smoke from the cracks, their howls splitting the sky. Eric shifted without hesitation, his body stretching and breaking into his wolf form. He met them head-on, claws and fangs tearing through mist and light. For every one he struck down, two more appeared. I joined the fight the only way I could, calling on the silver in my blood. It answered eagerly, spilling from my veins in ribbons of light. Where it touched the shadow beasts, they faltered, dissolving into motes of ash. But the power was wild. Every use tore something from me. My vision blurred, my breath caught fire in my lungs, and still the valley burned brighter, the cracks widening until molten silver poured through them like rivers. Then the voice returned, louder, nearer. Child of moon, child of shadow, you are not separate. You are the same wound. The words were not sound but memory. I saw flashes, two gods arguing, a blade of night cutting through silver light, a scream that birthed the first wolves. And then silence. When my sight cleared, the battlefield was gone. The valley had become a lake of molten silver, perfectly still. The sky above us was black, no stars, no moon, only the faint outline of something vast moving behind the clouds. Eric staggered beside me, human again, his chest heaving. His eyes glowed faintly gold now, neither shadow nor light. "It's awake," he said hoarsely. "The god. It's awake inside us." I shook my head. "Not inside. Between." He looked at me sharply. "What do you mean?" "I mean it doesn't want one of us to win. It wants both, to merge, to finish what it started when it split itself apart." Eric's jaw clenched. "And what happens if we refuse?" The air rippled. The lake's surface began to rise, taking shape. A colossal figure formed from the silver, half wolf, half void, its face shifting between male and female, between human and divine. "Then the world ends as it began," the voice thundered. With division, the gods stepped toward us, each footfall shaking the valley. Eric drew his sword, though we both knew it was meaningless against something that wasn't flesh. I reached for his hand. "If we fight it, we die." He looked at me, the bond between us thrumming like a live wire. "And if we surrender? Then maybe we find out what comes after gods." For a heartbeat, the world held still, the choice balanced between us. Then Eric exhaled slowly and lowered his blade. He took my hand in his. Together, we stepped into the lake of silver. The god leaned down, its eyes, our eyes, mirroring everything we were: light, shadow, curse, love, rage, survival. And then it smiled. "So be it," it whispered. "Become whole." The lake rose around us, swallowing everything. When I breathed again, there was no mountain, no snow, no sky, only light and dark folding into each other endlessly, like inhaling eternity. I could feel Eric beside me, not as a body, but as presence, warmth, gravity. "Leora." His voice echoed through the vastness. "Are you still here?" "Yes." "Then hold on." The world began to take shape again around us, stone, wind, heartbeat. But it wasn't Duskvale we returned to. It was something else entirely. Something new. When I woke, the world was wrong. The air didn't smell like snow or stone anymore. It smelled like lightning, raw and alive. The sky above wasn't blue, or gray, or even real sky. It shimmered like a liquid mirror, reflecting things that weren't there. The ground beneath me pulsed softly, like the world itself had a heartbeat. "Leora?" Eric's voice came from behind me, hoarse, uncertain. I turned. He was kneeling a few feet away, bare-chested, eyes glowing faintly gold and silver at once. The mark that had spread from his curse was gone, replaced by new veins of light under his skin. His shadow no longer followed him. It drifted behind him like smoke with a will of its own. We were no longer in Duskvale. The valley, the mountains, even the snow, all gone. In their place stretched a landscape made of memory. Shapes of wolves moved in the distance, translucent, howling soundlessly at a shattered moon. "This isn't real," I whispered. "No," Eric said. "It's what's left of the god's mind." He looked around, eyes narrowing. "It pulled us inside it. We didn't merge with the god, it merged with us." I tried to stand, but the moment my foot touched the ground, the world rippled. Images bloomed beneath my step, flashes of forests, temples, wars. Thousands of years of memory, all imprinted in the land. The god was showing us its past. We walked through it in silence. Everywhere we looked, pieces of the old world replayed like echoes. Wolves made of stars hunting across endless plains, gods of light and shadow arguing atop mountains, the moment the moon cracked and bled. At the center of it all stood a single spire of crystal, pulsing with the same rhythm as our bond. The closer we got, the louder the whispering became. "You are the last of me," the voices said. "You carry what I was, what I will be again. Why us?" I called into the wind. "We didn't ask for this. You were made for this," the god answered. "Shadow chose flesh to survive. Light chose blood. You are the joining of both." I looked at Eric, heart hammering. "It's saying we're not just cursed, we're its reincarnation." He shook his head. "I'm no god. I'm a man who made too many mistakes." The voice grew quieter, almost gentle. "Then be both." When we reached the crystal, it was like standing before a living heart. It pulsed with every breath we took. The god's power, our power, was trapped inside, swirling silver and black. Eric touched the surface, and his hand sank through as if into water. His eyes went wide. "It's memories. All of them." "Don't," I began, but he was already gone. I followed. Inside, the world changed again. I stood in a battlefield made of light. Wolves the size of mountains clashed, tearing through the sky. Two figures stood at the center, one robed in silver flame, the other draped in shadow. I recognized their faces instantly.
Mine.
And Eric's. Not exactly us, but echoes of what we'd been before time forgot. The Moonborn and the Nightbringer, the twin gods who had created wolves as guardians of the balance. Until one tried to destroy the other. The scene unfolded, and I could feel their rage, their grief, their unbearable loneliness. I felt her, my past self, shatter in his arms, bleeding silver light into the world. I felt him, Eric's ancient self, howl until the mountains cracked. When it ended, I collapsed to my knees. "That's what we are," I whispered. The same story repeating itself. Eric knelt beside me. "Then maybe this time, it doesn't have to end the same way." I looked up, meeting his eyes. The gold and silver in them swirled together now, no longer fighting. "You really think we can break a god cycle?" He smiled faintly. "We already have. You're still breathing." The crystal began to tremble. Light fractured outward, and the god's voice returned, louder, urgent. "The world outside burns. The wolves are awakening. You must choose what survives." "What does that mean?" I shouted. "One of you must carry the divinity. The other must remain mortal." Eric's gaze snapped to mine. "If one of us takes it, the other dies," I finished. The god's voice softened. "Not death. Transformation." The crystal split open with a thunderclap, light flooding the world. In its center, a sphere of pure energy hovered, silver and black swirling like a storm. It pulsed once, waiting. Eric reached for it. "It should be me." "No," I said. "It should be me. My blood started this." He shook his head. "And my curse unleashed it. I won't let it take you. Don't you dare make that choice for me. Someone has to." We stood there, both reaching toward the light, our hands inches apart. The power flared, reacting to our indecision. The air tore open, wind and magic screaming through the god's mindscape. I shouted over the storm. "We don't have to let it divide us again. That's what it wants." He hesitated, arm trembling. "Then what do? "We take it together." The light flared brighter, blinding. For a single heartbeat, I saw him smile, sharp and sad and beautiful. Then we stepped forward, hands joined, into the core of the god. Light swallowed everything. Pain and peace collided. The world ended and began again. When the brightness faded, we stood once more in the mortal world, but it wasn't the same one we'd left. The mountains glowed faintly silver, the air humming with new life. The wolves that had once been only beasts now carried a spark of divinity in their eyes. I looked down at my hands. They glowed faintly, no longer just silver, but threaded with shadow. Eric stood beside me, his aura flickering with the same light. He met my gaze. Did we? Yes, I whispered. We're both alive. The god's voice faded on the wind, barely audible. Balance restored.
For now.
For the first time, the silence between us wasn't heavy. It was full.
Complete.
Eric looked out across the glowing valley. So, what are we now? I smiled. Not gods. Not wolves. Something in between. Something dangerous then. Something free. 3 moons passed before the path home appeared. Not a road. Roads couldn't survive what we'd done. The mountains themselves shifted, parting in slow groans of stone until the frozen forests of hollow fell stretched out before us again. It should have felt like returning to safety. Instead, it felt like walking into a ghost's mouth. The trees whispered as we passed, their trunks marked with old claw scars from hunts long before either of us had been born. The snow was different here, no silver, no shadow. Just white. Ordinary. Mortal. Do you think they'll recognize you? I asked quietly. Eric's lips curved faintly. I hope not. He looked human again, mostly. His eyes still gleamed in certain light, and the air around him still shimmered faintly when he breathed. My own reflection betrayed me worse. The silver in my veins pulsed softly under my skin, like tiny constellations. When I hid them under gloves, the glow bled through the fabric anyway. Monsters, I muttered. That's what they'll see. He glanced at me. You've forgotten what monsters can do, Leora. They change the world. By the time we reached Hollowfell's gates, the pack had already gathered. The scent of fear hit, and the Alpha King. He looked between us, eyes wide. The god's storm ended the night you vanished. The moon bled, the shadows fell, and then nothing. We thought you destroyed each other. I met his gaze. We did. A murmur ran through the crowd. Mirk frowned. And now, Eric said, stepping forward, the world begins again. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. The wolves flinched instinctively, the old instinct of submission still alive in their blood. Yet what came from him wasn't dominance, it was resonance. The power that had once commanded now harmonized. I could feel it too, that pull of connection spreading through the pack like warmth after a long winter.
They didn't bow.
They listened. Mirk's expression hardened. You bring strange magic, King of Duskvale. You and the cursed Omega who kills with her blood. Eric's jaw flexed. Her curse saved your world. And cost us the balance of the old order, Mirk snapped. The gods should have stayed dead. I stepped forward.
They are.
What stands before you is not godhood. It's what's left when you strip divinity of its arrogance. He sneered. You expect us to worship you? No, I raised my hand. The silver veins glowed softly, lighting the snow between us. I expect you to understand that you don't need gods or kings anymore. The power that created us, the curse, the gift, it belongs to everyone. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The younger wolves stirred, their eyes catching the light, silver sparks flickering faintly in their irises. The older ones looked horrified. You had spread the infection? Mirk hissed. I smiled. Not infection. Awakening. The pack turned restless. Whispers rose. Hope, fear, disbelief. Somewhere in the back, a voice shouted, "Let her prove it." Eric's gaze flicked to mine. You don't have to. I do, I said softly. They'll never believe otherwise. I knelt and pressed my palm to the snow. My blood seeped into it. Silver streaks branching outward like roots. The ground trembled. Then, one by one, faint lights flickered in the snow around us. Wolves emerged from the shadows, dozens of them, eyes bright, their forms shimmering with the same strange glow that danced under my skin. They weren't ordinary wolves. They were new. The pack fell silent. This is what comes after gods, I said. Wolves that remember who they were before fear taught them to kneel. Mirk stumbled back, shaking his head. You've doomed us all. Eric's hand closed around my shoulder. No, he said. She's saved you from yourselves." The elder turned and fled, his robes vanishing into the snow. The rest of the pack didn't follow. They stayed, watching, breathing, waiting. I looked at them, at the familiar faces that had once called me cursed. "I'm not here to rule you," I said. "But if you'll let me, I can teach you to control what's coming. To live with the power instead of dying by it." Silence again. Then, from the front, a young Omega stepped forward, a girl with trembling hands and wide, curious eyes. "Will it hurt?" she asked. "Only at first," I said. "Then it feels like remembering who you are." She nodded, hesitated once, and then took my hand. Her veins lit up like dawn. That night, Hollowfell's forest glowed with silver light. Wolves ran through the snow, their howls harmonizing with the wind. Not worship, not fear, freedom. Eric stood beside me on the ridge, arms folded. "They'll follow you," he said quietly. I looked at him. "You sound surprised." "I'm not. I just didn't think you'd want them to." "I don't," I admitted. "But they deserve to choose their future, not inherit ours." He nodded. "And what about us?" The question hung between us, heavier than the winter air. I turned to him, meeting his gaze. "We've done what the gods couldn't. Maybe now we finally get to decide what comes next." He smiled, slow and tired and utterly human. "Then let's make it something worth remembering." As dawn broke, the first true sunrise in months spilled gold across the snow. For the first time, it didn't burn or blind. It warmed. The silver in my blood dimmed to a quiet glow, like it, too, could rest. The old world had ended. The new one was ours to build. And somewhere beyond the horizon, I swear I heard the moon laugh. The world was quiet again. Not the uneasy silence of fear, but the deep, full kind, the kind that lives after storms. 3 days had passed since Hollowfell's awakening. The forest had changed. Trees gleamed faintly under moonlight, rivers shimmered silver at their edges, and the air hummed with the pulse of life reborn. Wolves no longer hid from the night. They ran through it, luminous trails in the snow, laughing like the sky itself belonged to them. Eric and I watched from the cliff where our story had first broken open. The valley below burned with the light of a new age, one not ruled by kings or gods, but by choice. "You did it," he said softly. I smiled, the wind tugging at my hair. "We did it." He was quiet for a long time. His eyes, still that strange blend of gold and silver, watched the sunrise as if afraid it might disappear again. "The balance won't last forever," he murmured. "The gods' power lives in us now. If it grows unchecked." "It won't," I said, "because we'll be here to keep it steady." He laughed under his breath. Always the optimist. "No," I said, "just done being afraid." That night, we built a fire. No guards, no rituals, just warmth shared the way mortals always have. I sat across from him, watching the shadows dance across his face. For once, they didn't move without him. They belonged to him again. "You could leave, you know," he said after a while. "Take what we've learned, go where no one remembers the curse or the crown." "And you?" He stared into the flames. "I've ruled too long to know what living means." "Then learn," I said. His gaze lifted to mine. For a heartbeat, he looked like the man I'd first seen on that throne, cold, distant, dangerous. But the danger wasn't anger anymore. It was honesty. "I don't know how." "Neither do I admitted. "But I think that's the point." When the moon rose again, its light was clean for the first time in centuries. No blood, no shadow, just silver. The god that had lived within us had gone quiet, its presence reduced to a hum at the edges of awareness. Not gone, just resting. I stood and let the light fall across my hands. "It feels different," I said. Eric came to stand beside me. "It feels free." He reached out, his fingers brushing mine. No burn, no smoke, just touch, simple and human. "Do you ever wonder," I asked softly, "if we were meant to survive all along? If the curse was never a punishment, but a test?" He smiled. Then I suppose we passed. The bond between us pulsed once, faintly, no longer a chain, but a heartbeat shared between equals. I could feel the wolf in him, the wild power beneath his skin, and I knew he could feel the same in me. Not hunger, not fear, just recognition. By the next morning, the pack had begun to change again. Some left, traveling to other lands to spread the new balance. Others stayed, rebuilding what centuries of superstition had destroyed. Hollowfell would no longer kneel to gods or kings. They called it the Dawn Pact, a promise to remember that power meant nothing without mercy. I watched as the young Omega-eyed Awakened ran through the snow, her laughter echoing across the trees. For the first time, I felt something close to peace. Eric found me at the edge of the clearing.
They'll tell stories about this, he said.
About us. They'll make them prettier than the truth, I said. He chuckled. That's what stories are for. Then let them. I looked at him, truly looked. But when they do, promise me one thing.
What?
That we won't live in those stories. We'll make new ones. His answer was a quiet nod. Always. When the sun rose, we stood on the ridge together. The light caught on the frost, scattering rainbows through the air. I felt the god within us stir one last time, not as warning but as blessing. Live well, it whispered. You are what remains when divinity remembers to be kind. And then it was gone. Eric's hand found mine again. We watched the last stars fade.
No kings, no curses, no gods.
Only two souls who had been all of them, and finally, for once, wanted to be neither. That was the last dawn the world would ever call cursed. From then on, they called it the Morning of Wolves. Years later, the stories were still told. They began the way all myths do, with a warning and a whisper. When the moon bled and the mountains cracked, the world ended, and two monsters taught it how to begin again. No one called them cursed anymore. The name Leora of Hollowfell became a promise mothers whispered to newborns. You will never fear what makes you different. Children learned that silver blood once remade the world, and that the Alpha King who devoured fear had learned to live without it. And so they called that age the Morning of Wolves. The packs changed. The old borders dissolved, replaced by small circles of wolves who carried pieces of the god's gift in their blood. Some could hear the thoughts of beasts, others shaped the wind or mended the sick. No one ruled them. They led themselves. The old thrones stood empty, but no one dared rebuild them. Duskvale's fortress was overgrown now, its black stones softened by moss and light. On clear nights, travelers said they could still see two silhouettes walking the ridge above it, one wreathed in silver, one in shadow, always side by side. No one ever saw them close. But when the moon rose full and white, every wolf felt the pulse of something familiar, a heartbeat that was not their own. One story claimed Leora and Eric lived as wanderers, teaching young Omegas how to control their light, showing Alphas that dominance was a relic of fear. Another said they vanished entirely, becoming the twin stars that guided wolves through winter. But the truest story came from a girl who met them once, long after the gods had gone quiet. She was lost in the forest, hungry and afraid, when a woman with silver veins found her and offered her a hand. The girl asked, "Are you a ghost?" The woman smiled.
No.
Just someone who remembers what it's like to be one. Beside her stood a man with eyes like molten gold. He handed the girl bread and said, "Monsters don't always stay that way. Sometimes they get to start over." When the girl blinked, they were gone. Only footprints remained, one deep, one light, side by side in the snow. Seasons turned, generations passed. But on the first night of every new year, the wolves of the world still gathered beneath the moon. They raised their voices not in mourning, but in celebration, howling the old song of balance and freedom. Some said that if you listened closely, you could still hear two voices woven through the rest, one fierce and bright as starlight, the other low and steady as thunder. The voices that had once broken the world. The voices that had taught it how to heal. And high above, where the moonlight met the shadow of the peaks, Two wolves stood watching, one silver, one black, their eyes the color of dawn. They did not speak. They didn't need to. The god within them slept. The world was alive. And the story, like the pack, would always continue. And so the curse became a legend. Two souls who were never meant to survive taught the gods what it meant to be human. Maybe that's the truth behind every monster and every king. They're just stories waiting to be rewritten. If this tale of shadow and silver moved you, of love that defied gods and a world reborn from ruin, there are more waiting in the dark. Subscribe for more dark fantasy love stories, where curses turn into destinies, monsters find mercy, and every ending dares to begin again. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep chasing the moon.